I never questioned the workings of the universe. I think it's a fool's errand. I grew up in this world that was, embedded in addiction and violence. And when I thought about this idea of like creating meaning in my life, I'm like, well, I got this big pot of shit here. And I heard my mentor say one time, the secret is to find value where value is undetectable. Like all of these characteristics of addiction that seem to hamper my existence and hamper my life, I use to turn into this strength. Like how much of my experience is constructed by social programming? How much of my experience is a repeat of yesterday? I think about the future and I get anxiety, or I project, and the best thing I can do is predict based on where I come from. And if I don't come from a nice place, I'm probably going to project something that isn't nice. Like here's the trick: the future is completely unwritten. Anything can happen. Anything.
All right, what's going on, everybody? We are streaming exclusively to YouTube. Thank you for everyone who jumped over. That was tonight's guest, Ryan Bathgate. I'm Daniel Unmanageable, and this is Hard Knox Talks, coming at you from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Treaty Number 6 territory, and the traditional homeland of the Métis people. Before we bring in Ryan, I just want to remind our viewers to stay to the end for a sneak peek at next week's guest, Rob Krauser, social worker from Regina who works in harm reduction. He has a mind-blowing story, so stick around to the end for that. Let's bring in Ryan. Ryan, how are you?
Oh, I'm pretty good, actually. And I answer that pretty honestly. I mean, when I'm not good, I don't hide that. So I don't like the surface regular response. So, yeah, fine, everything's fine.
No, yeah. How are you doing?
Yeah. I mean, every day is a cluster of just like, got to get here, and I'm 5 minutes late for this, and so it's right on par, the usual. 5 minutes late here, got to get set up, didn't work, blah, 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 blah. Kids crying,
Welcome to my Sunday night. This is just a regular Sunday night for me. So you will very likely see kids ripping around behind us, like coming in and out from time to time during the live stream. We live in a very small house, and and we talked a bit about this earlier, but we are blessed to have all the things that we need to be okay, including my son getting up on a wakeboard, 9 years old today. Yeah.
I come to my office so I don't have those. The kids. Because we don't have, my office turned into the new baby room when we had our now 11-month-old. So my office moved into the kitchen, the dining room, and it's just not going to happen. So I come down to my office.
So is there anything that you'd like to say tonight before we jump in?
Here's the thing. I've always got a lot to say, and we're probably going to get some laughs here from the Ashes to Awesome guys. What I would like to say is, today, the world is an absolutely beautiful, marvelous, phenomenal place, and I'm just super grateful to be. I'm grateful to have people that listen to what I have to say, and it just shocks me every time. So this is cool. Thanks, Danny, for having me on. Of course, thanks, Chuck, for making the recommendation. And this is going to be fun. I'm really looking forward to this.
All right, let's jump in.
This is Hard Knox Talks.
Okay, before we get started tonight, I just want to let you know that tonight's live production is premier sponsored by Prairie Sky Recovery Center, and we're going to learn a little more about them in just a little bit. So, Ryan, in the intro, we heard a little bit about you. Now, we know that you have a jaded past, and at the end, you said something to the effect of, the future is unwritten and anything can happen. Now, certainly someone doesn't come into that realization like the second they change their life, like the second they make a decision to stop using drugs or stop whatever the case is, right? How long did it take you when you walked onto the path to healing to realize that you truly are limitless?
There's so many. Honestly, I have so many events that have compiled in that. I guess what happened. I started the recovery journey really early. 1997, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been in and out of that for most of my life. It's not, I mean, for me, what happened is, the community's great, but I felt like I needed more. And so what happened was, I mean, I was smashing nails into 2x4s doing framing in my early 30s, and the my best friend I grew up with, he was a construction worker, and so I did we had this little business. The business originally was a money wash.
Oh.
Originally, yeah, and then I went and cleaned myself up a little bit, and
let's
then
actually hammer some nails.
Actually, yeah. But
That's
I had
convenient to
this,
just like have that there. Like,
right?
look at this.
And there's and it really paid off in the long run. But that's a whole other story. I won't get into it right now. But so I'm sitting there and I'm feeling like something's missing from my life. You know what I mean? Like I'm not meant to be a carpenter. I'm not meant to really use my hands, to be honest with you. And so I went and saw this lady. She was a career counselor at a college, and my friend had moved back to Comox where we grew up because his father had suddenly had a heart attack and passed. So he just like packed up, went, and he was such a good dude too. Like, it was really a sad time. But I was like, here's my chance. I don't have a mortgage. I don't have kids. I don't have any real responsibilities other than like a burner phone bill. You know what I mean? Like, and so I was like, I went and saw this lady and was like, look, I know there's something more for me in this world, and I don't know what it is. I don't know how to get there. And she was this like super cool, like must have been from one of the islands or something, because she was very organic, let's say, and so like sticks in her hair and like a sweater that was like this thick of like real wool, anyway. So she asked me this question that changed my entire world. And what she asked me was, why don't you define success for me? And what I rambled off was the same thing that I had rambled off time and time again, verbatim.
What
and
was
in
it?
that moment, well, it's a little bit, there's some vulgarness to it.
You can use vulgarity if it's meaningful. I mean,
okay, it's the definition of the hedonic treadmill. It is materialism, a good job, a family, a wife with big breasts.
Yeah, hot wife. Yeah.
With bigger breasts.
Oh.
And what I realized is that wasn't my definition. It never was, and I'd been saying that my whole life. And what that did was it expanded my horizons of understandings to go farther beyond than my own nose, which is the way I was living. And I realized that I had never identified anything for myself. I'd never ever defined anything in my world for myself. It was always your version or someone else's version that I had adopted and made mine, that was never actually mine. And what that really taught me was that I was always a passenger in the ride of my own existence. I was never actually present. I was always watching my existence happen. And so right from there, I started to redefine everything, what a man was, what a friend was. I decided that, I'm going to call this thing a computer because that's just easier, but it's my choice. And then I started to learn. And so I went to counseling school. And in counseling school, I started to learn some stuff. And I finished that relatively quickly. I had not gone back to school for 15 years out of absolute fear. Because
you thought your brain was cooked.
Well, no, actually, the only thing that I ever really had in my life was intelligence. Okay. And so if I went to school and I failed,
then who are
you? Be it. Then who am I? Then I had the only thing that I ever had would be taken away from me. And it shit scared me for years. And so I wouldn't go. And people would always tell me, you need to go to academia. Like, what are you doing? And I'd be like, give them some excuse. Oh, I got to work and I got to
smash nails.
Yeah. Or the other side of the fence, which was I was into for many years. And so, more than anything, what that brought me was a freedom that I'd never experienced before. That I started to understand that reality was of my making. In that I could exist in a reality that I could build for myself and live in absolute peace if that's what I wanted to do. So I started to define everything now. And then as I went on, I learned a lot about other modalities and theories and philosophy. So I went to work.
Hang on a
Yep.
second here. Now, I'm interested to know, like, what were some of the first big defining things? Like, was there one thing, like, when you, like, I'm going to change this and, like, redefine how I see this? Like, was there some core things that you changed that have stayed with you?
Yeah. Okay. Um, so in that period, same period, so I'd gone on to work. My very first job as a counselor I was a STAR program, it was called, which is a stabilized treatment access to recovery was the
Mm.
acronym.
Hmm.
And it was basically a 6-week program of people that were coming from detox and trying to get to treatment. And what I was doing was like actual work, so it didn't fit with me. But I was mentored by this guy. I wonder if I should say his name. He's such a huge part of my life, and
He's a
he
guy.
taught me. He does a chapter in this book right here called "Expressions of Phenomenology." This way.
Okay.
Super good book. And he's a phenomenologist. He's a PhD in phenomenology. Phenomenology is the study of consciousness.
Hmm.
Okay, that changed everything, like everything.
Look
What
at
I
Donna. Look at Donna's
realized.
face right now. She's like, oh, yes, I like this guy. Tell us more
Okay,
about the brain changing.
well, man, it was oh my god. And and we'd have these talks about I'm going to say this word Gadamerian concept. And Gadamer he's a phenomenologist. I started reading Husserl, Kierkegaard, Hegel, Heidegger. All of these they're all gone, long gone now. But these guys would be looking at what consciousness is, and how much of the social tapestry really defines how our outcomes happen. And then I grabbed this book here. Oh, it's not here. I lied. I have a million books around me at all times. It's just a thing for me. There's this book called um, uh, uh, The Globalization of Addiction by Bruce Alexander. Now, you might know that name because he's the guy that did Rat Park.
Hmm.
Do you know Rat Park?
I don't.
No? Oh, my. Rat Park. Okay, so Nixon says war on drugs. America's number one enemy is drugs,
Hmm.
and we need to kill. You know what I mean? And so they started doing tests on rats and putting a rat in a cage and giving a bottle of cocaine and a bottle of water, and they would do the cocaine until they died. And obviously the drugs are doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Bruce Alexander was like, "Well, hold on a second here. That's not an actually fair assessment."
Yeah. I
What
have heard of
if the
this.
conditions, right? So the conditions were different. So he made this massive at SFU, and SFU is world famous for this. Um,
Hmm.
and so he made this massive rat park where the rats had everything they could ever want, all their buddies and wood chips and I don't know garbage because I know that they're
Rat
they provide
things.
garbage. Yeah, rat things, and
Yeah.
they're playing, and not one rat took the cocaine or the heroin or any other drug that they put in there. They all drank the water. So that
Hmm.
goes to show the social tapestry has a massive part to play. And if we look at what's happening in today's world, where materialism is number one, capitalism is about isolation. Isolation does create suffering, and suffering needs to cope. Coping is easy when you drink something, snort something, blah, blah, blah. So when we look at the construct of consciousness around this,
Hmm.
we are forfeiting our right to access choice. Siddharthian theory, or Buddhist theory, choice and freedom are the same thing. So by not choosing, we create our own version of self-oppression. That self-oppression is what makes us feel pressured and like our life is getting stagnant. Enter depression, anxiety, all these maladaptive disorders that start to happen
Hmm.
because the social tapestry actually isn't conducive or cultivating to human flourishing. So if we
Hmm.
really think about what's happening here, what I am as a human being is I need to be emotional, connectable, use my brain to help me with things, but it's my feelings that put me in the moment. And capitalism says, no, 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 that makes for poor consumers. We need you to have low self-esteem, low
Hmm.
self-worth, and low
Hmm.
self-respect, and
And feel
that will
like you need
create
more.
right, and right. And so
Yeah.
there's this documentary called Happy that used to be on Netflix. That this guy goes to New York City and he asks people on the street, "Hey, what do you want out of life?" And they're like, "Oh, I want to be happy." And they're like, "Okay, what does that mean?" Well, a better job, more money, and a bigger house, and like, okay, and how's that going to make you happy? And so he
Hmm.
goes all around the world, and what he realizes is it's these small pockets of communities that have it doesn't matter if they have something or nothing, but in these pockets of communities like Louisiana, Africa, there's a little island of South Japan where they were, and a country called Bhutan, where they all invest in community and connection. And and most importantly, EQ, the emotional intelligence, our ability to access the moment, to access life in motion as it's spinning, as the Earth is spinning around the sun. And this happens when my daughter runs up and gives me a hug after work and says, "I love you, Daddy."
Mm-hmm.
That moment transcends space and time and doesn't matter how much money I make. It doesn't matter how much hair's on my head. It doesn't matter what size my truck is, what my T4 says, because the only thing that really matters is that little girl loves it. F out of me. And that's the only thing I care about in this world. And that to me is life in motion. That is life in action.
I think
And
Donna's
that's
going to
where
cry.
I want to be. So do I. I want it. And I always want it. And if I do, then I want that to be a celebration. Again, going against this, what is a man? Redefine that. Because a man, I was raised that a man fights hard, fucks hard, and works hard. And that's what a man is.
Yeah.
And no coincidence, a farmer from Saskatchewan raised me. So this whole like agricultural
Farmers do love those things.
overlay. Yes, they do. They sure do. And that's, and I got raised in that way. But I wasn't allowed to cry. I wasn't allowed to feel. I wasn't allowed to show emotion.
Yeah.
And what the hell is that? Because
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what I have as far as genitals. I'm still a human being. And I'm going to be the very best version of that as I can, right to this is my choice, right to the T, which means if I cry, it's because my somatic expression is more important than the social tapestry to me.
Somatic expression. Whoa, hang on now. Hang on. Whoa, somatic expression. Unpack that.
Somatic is the physical form.
Okay.
So my physical body, right? Somatic expression is when a psychosomatic connection is with the mind and the body in concert, connecting. So when I think of something that makes me cry, that is the psychosomatic expression. Right?
Okay.
Or when I get anxiety, I think about something and my stomach drops. That's a psychosomatic connection as well. I shouldn't say it's bad because honestly, I don't believe in good and bad based on the organic world. Good and bad is a construct of our human imagination. I listen to a lot of Alan Watts, and man,
I can tell.
that guy blows my mind.
I love Alan Watts.
Oh my god, me too. And this is what I'll be working, and I have hours of Alan Watts on this computer right here because I just like listening to that, like the idea that like squiggles and goo, man. Like I want to be part of the organic world, and this is so like I have this theory that I really love to try to make sense of to people. I don't know. It never takes it with my clients after 50 sessions, they start to get it, but where, I don't know. Like, I really try. So what it is that rhythm, the organic world works in rhythms. Everything is in rhythm. The way rivers flow, the way wind blows, the way that trees grow, everything. There's nothing linear. There's no right angles. There's no straight lines. It's squiggles and goo, as Alan Watts says. And so when I'm in a connection with another human being, it's a very organic happening that is completely dependent on my feeling, my senses. I need to lose my mind to come to my senses. That's how I transcend space and time through life in motion. And I do it by doing this emotional, vulnerable, connectable ways. And as soon as I think, I'm gone. As soon as my thought starts going, I'm either in yesterday or tomorrow. There is no time for thinking in the moment. That's why, like my dog, love her, but she just does the same thing every day. You know what I mean? And so like we have this amazing capacity to have an IQ, but when we over embellish the IQ, we lose the EQ component, and that makes us out of balance. It's like when you're, I don't know, when you're like your AC goes in your fan belt and it starts running without it, and it puts more stress on the other parts of the motor. So this is why, like I always explain, like in our capitalist state or in our current North American social tapestry, there's a lot of really smart people, but they're completely bankrupt in their emotional intelligence, their EQ. And so like we need to get back to this idea of what is vulnerability. And how do I get to that place where vulnerability is acceptable? We grew up, I did anyway, I'm born in the 70s, so that kind of dates me. I grew up in a time where vulnerability is weakness, right?
Yeah.
And that's a crock of shit. An absolute disservice to my own potential as a human being. And so I decided that I'm just not going to live by that anymore. So that's someone else's rule. It ain't mine. And so, how do I get there? How do I create vulnerability? How do I live in that space? And it's a really good question, I'll tell you. And the answer to that question is an extremely important value, which is courage. I need to have courage. in order to be vulnerable.
Let's take a moment, hear a couple of words from tonight's sponsors, and then we're going to look at some comments.
Now that I've left Prairie Sky, I just feel free from my addiction. Treatment saved my life. Prairie Sky recovery saved my life.
All right. If you want to learn more about Prairie Sky Recovery Center, you can find them on the sponsors tab on our website, www.hardknockstalks.com. Tonight's live production is also brought to you in part by Prairie Harm Reduction in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and Stronger Together Canada, peer-led support groups by Mums Stop the Harm. You can also find more about them at www.hardknockstalks.com. While you're there, check out our fresh summer 2023 merch. It is sick. The end. Let's look at some comments. Let's see. There was one here that I wanted to make sure it was very meaningful. Here it is.
Ash is awesome. Thank you for your comment. Says, Dan, you need a cash register sound effect on the ready for every time he says a $20 word.
I think he's doing all right. Like, I don't think he's doing too bad. I'm picking it up.
Has this on my Kaleidoscope show, our Kaleidoscope Wednesday show. He's got a register sound, so every time I do one of those, he hits the old bings.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Maybe I do need one of those. That's not a terrible idea.
I'm working on it.
No, it's all good. I'll call you out.
As you see, I get going. So thank you for figuratively give me a little face slap when I get off in a tangent like that.
Don't worry. I got you. We're in this together. It's you and me, man. All right. Got Alexander.
Alexander, thanks for your comment. Says, I love that somatic response is more important than how society says we should react. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That brings something up for me. Can I go on that?
Yeah.
So I see that word react is a very, I think it's a really powerful word because it speaks to three phases of existence. When we talk about reaction, we talk about repeating our history. And so I like the word, literally it's react, right? So when I have a somatic or a limbic response that voids my cognitive awareness. So in other words, I'll have a limbic emotion memory center.
Okay.
Also, like it's so
that's like a $15 word.
Yeah, it's 17. Yeah. So when I have a response that isn't, so this is why our IQ is really important because we do need to get in the way, or else we're, like chimpanzees, for example, really highly emotional and also very reactive. You know what I mean? And so I don't want to live my life in yesterday. I just really don't, because yesterday wasn't so bad, but I want to be making new tomorrows. And so when I'm in a state of reaction, I'm actually in a state of oppression because I haven't made choice to do something different. Does that make sense?
How do you walk with someone through that? Someone that's coming in that is very reactive, that is very much using the lens of yesterday to look forward, like you spoke about in the intro. How do you start to work with that? How do you start to change the way that they see their reality moving forward?
So I'm going to take half a second here and say that you are a very skilled host to pick up on that. That is a phenomenal and astute question because there is a ton behind that. So
Let's go.
Walk someone through that? It is
$20 just raining.
Yeah. So the first thing I do is I talk about drivers and it literally, a behavior doesn't happen without a driver. The driver is the emotional foundation of whatever the behavior is. It's called a neural loop feedback response. That's the $20 word. Okay, so what happens is, what we have to do is to not react as we get in touch with our emotions. And we have to do a practice of expanding our emotional lexicon. That's the first thing I do is we start using emotion and vocabulary. So a lexicon is a fancy word for vocabulary. And so I usually get people like, I have my wall right over here. I have a feeling wheel. And every one of my staff members has a feeling wheel because we don't use words like good, fine, good enough, any of that. You know what I mean?
My counselor at Pine Lodge always said, no, fries are good. How are you?
I always say that shit ain't gonna fly here,
Mhm.
you know. And so, so then we start to expand it, and like all I did with this, like I can tell you a personal story with this, is when I was in counseling school, I took a feeling wheel with color and I put it on my fridge by the back door. And every time I walked out the door, I picked a new word off the wheel. And I would start with the middle, which is the very root words, and then they would branch off and off into the different ones. And I would just fit it into my vocabulary as I went through the day. I would keep trying to use that word. And what happened is I started to hear how people were feeling without the words that they were using in a very osmosis-y kind of way. And so it created this, like, it created an ability for connection that I never even knew existed because of the emotional medium. This is before I really understood neural loop theory and drivers. And so so the way that we walk through that is we start to talk about what the feeling is. And so, like, I found myself in a state of reaction. I did happen to me today at baseball. Okay. I dove for a ball and missed it, and it was foul. And no, that happened twice. Better yet, this is a better one. I caught a ball. I was playing third base, and I caught it from the outfield, and I laid the tag down. And he slid right into my glove, and the ump called him safe, and I turned into a 7-year-old instantly. Add competition. Completely missed my prefrontal cortex and my cerebral cortex, and right from emotion
Right into the lizard brain.
I was like, I'm gonna, you know what I mean, like kicking dirt. And I have my pitchers like, listen, it's a space. Who cares? It's a slow pitch. We're 45 years old. You know
Okay.
what I mean? I was like,
okay. So you still have these reactions? Was that a reaction? Was it?
Oh yes, that was a reaction from 42 years ago.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I have a thermostat in my house that I own that I'm still afraid to use.
Because
In my house, the thermostat got touched.
Yeah.
And I'm the one that dealt with that, whether it was me or not, and not a fun way. And so I'm 45 years old, looking over my shoulder every time I change the heat. And so that is a reactive response to a very deep driver, a deep emotional driver, which is fear. You know what I mean? And so we don't. It's kind of like trauma. We don't fix it. We just learn how to deal with it, and we learn how to create perceptual space. And so when you think about what pressure is, it's just physics, right? Pressure is like a constant force and a lack of space, and that's how pressure is. So the constant force is life. But what we don't realize is we have so much power within our ability to choose perception, to choose the lens we see the world in. And when I choose the lens differently, it can open up the space of perception. So I believe we have 4 things that we control in this world: commitment, effort, environment, and perception. Everything else is out of my control. And I live by that. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. I just live by it. It works for me. And honestly, I can't think of anything else that I really do. What I can't control is what you think of me. And so why would I waste my time? You know what I mean? I just got to go with it. So anyways, so we're talking about reactive space. We're talking about really giving up choice and letting history make the choice for us. So in any given fork in the road, a choice is going to be made. If I make the choice, I live in the freedom associated with that, according to Buddhist philosophy, which I found true time and time again. When I don't make a choice is made for me. It's made by my history. And when my history makes a choice, I got Groundhog Day. I'm Bill Murray. And it's just over and over again. And I wonder, and then we think about that relative to like a relapse cycle or to a trigger point. And all of a sudden you're like, well, what the hell, man? Like, how did I end up here again? I just flushed 6 months away. And I don't even know what happened. And what happened was usually a building of emotional turmoil that builds up over time. And it hits a one trigger point that'll fire off this behavior loop that we have no choice. It's an OCD lock loop. And it's so ingrained because we've done it so many times that it's so hard to break. And if you think about how we break this, we do it by practicing. And we learn how to attach in a different way. You go to treatment, what do? You get up in the morning, same time every day, right?
Yes.
You make your bed, same time every day. You go to groups, same time every day. You go to your lunch, same time every day. All these things you're doing are building self-esteem, self-worth, and self-respect. We're developing intrinsic resources to create a new sense of neural loop. So we attach this feeling. So I went to treatment, 100 million years ago, and I still make my bed every day. Marina, if you're listening, I know it's not every day.
It's not every day. Yeah. I'm sitting here going, and I don't.
Yeah. Hey, our rule is last one out of bed makes the bed. That's our rule. But the point is like when you come into your home and your home is a safe, beautiful oasis, it's a sanctuary. Something happens in our intrinsic resource. Our intrinsic resource is the most important thing we need to navigate from, and it's where our values live. And so this is what I rely upon when, and I'm gonna say, like, I don't do sponsors and things like that anymore. Being a therapist kind of takes that out of the ballpark anyway. But when your sponsor doesn't answer, your best friend doesn't answer, what do you have to rely on? If your self-worth is decimated, if your self-esteem is decimated, then you're starting to look at other coping strategies, like drink that, smoke that. You know what I mean? Like the fuck it switch, if you will. Pardon my language, but I mean, like
it's a thing.
But if I have this sense of self, I'm worth something. I believe in myself. I have meaning in my life, and I have drive and purpose.
You have a home to go to.
There's no way that is going to be a solution ever again. Do you know what I mean? Like, and so, and I wish that treatment centers would have more of an explicit understanding or expression of why we do these things. And it's not about discipline. It's about intrinsic resource. It's about learning how to create self-worth within without having to, I don't know, burn your life down to figure it out. And I didn't have to do that. I just got lucky with having beautiful people come into my life to teach me things. And I defined, so humility, there's one I redefined. Humility, to be teachable. Boom. That makes it really easy for me. Now, I lack it because I also am arrogant. So, I struggle with that at times. So arrogant being a blocker. Arrogance is a mask. Arrogance is a defense mechanism. It's something that keeps me from being connectable. In other words, it keeps me from being human to you. And as long as I'm not human to you, you have such an easy time dehumanizing me and making me an object. And that's exactly what I mean. I used to go to meetings. I get social anxiety. So what do? I look at only men. I look at their shoes and I tell their whole life story in a really negative way by the shoes they wear. Or if they wear shoes I like, I'll move on to someone that I don't like their shoes. You know what I mean? And that's how I keep people out.
Yeah.
But it's just it's these things that and I'm a safety seeker, man. I grew up in a world that safety is everything. But what I've done with that is, again, in this period of redefining, I took what it is to be a safety seeker and I made it more comprehensive. It wasn't just about safety. What if I made it about love? What if I was a love seeker? And so I had this skill that I developed being in chaos.
I mean, love is just another, like that's a safe space too. You're still looking for safety.
But my point is, I learned this skill not looking for safety, looking for danger. This is how I learned it, because I was surrounded by chaos, surrounded by violence. I always knew, I would never sit with my back to the room. I always had to have it against the wall. I needed to know exactly where the door was, where the window was, and what I'm going to hit you with. You know what I mean? And so what I did was I took that and I flipped it, man. And I just wanted to see. And part of this was an exercise that my mentor taught me to do. And he said, you go to the back. You go to the back every morning before you go to group. And I just want you to put on the lens of beauty for 30 seconds. And I did that. And so what I learned was, and I heard Alan Watts say, straight lines and right angles. And I saw the parking lot with the lines and the angles. And then behind it was this beautiful forest. And I thought to myself, an Excel spreadsheet makes my mind appeased. It makes it comfortable, but it does nothing for fulfillment. When I think about living a peaceful existence, where am I? I'm walking in a forest. There's a river nearby. There's a waterfall.
You're in your perceptual space.
Yes, and so that's a white door thing that I talk about on Kaleidoscope. I did that with Chuck. The white door trick is about how to use your cognitive mind to create an emotional space of safety by going back to somewhere in your childhood and then spending time in it, and which is a nice little. I can do it in a 7-Eleven, yeah, 7-Eleven lineup. I can do it at the bank lineup. I can do it sitting on a street corner. I can do it anywhere I want. Right now, if I want, I can close my eyes and I can go to a dock in Kalamaka Lake from when I was 7 years old, and it changes my entire chemistry. It changes my outlook. It gives me this sense of peace, and that's all I want. And so, when we talk about these, the pitfalls of my story and how I learned how to get to this place. And one of the things I learned was that I couldn't count on counting days of sobriety. That to me ended up being a trap, and it proved that self time and time again. And so I just shifted my focus, and I shifted it to this time that I was 35 years old, and I discovered through the lens of beauty, I went into a group full of people that would have, from a societal perspective, we would consider them sub-citizens based on stigma and all this, you know what I mean? And I put the lens of beauty on, and I saw beautiful pain and beautiful healing. I saw courage. I saw resiliency. I saw passion. I saw love. I saw life. I saw creativity.
Define beautiful pain.
Well, isn't it always beautiful?
Unpack that for us.
Okay. Life implies death. Light implies dark. Love implies pain. A seller implies a buyer. You can't have one without the other.
You're talking duality.
Yes, I am. Absolutely, I am. Duality of a post. What's the word I'm looking for? Post-constructive. No, that's not the word. So I'm gapping. I'm going to do that for a second. It'll come back to me in a second. So I'm dealing, what I'm doing. Okay, so we have post-structuralism. Boom, got it. Post-structuralism is that reality happens between my ears. In other words, so I learned about this when I was training and dealing with characteristics of schizophrenia, where you can't be a positivist. You can't believe that there is only one reality and people have to fit into that reality, or you'll never get anywhere with your client. I had to assume the role that my reality is mine, and his or her reality is his or hers, and what she's expressing to me is her reality, and it's not for me to say it's right or wrong. It's for me to try and join them. I want to ask questions. What color is the sky? What is it? A man's voice you're hearing? Are the electric spiders blue or red coming out of the vents? You know what I mean? And things like that. And so what that really taught me though was like, wow, you know what? Like, I don't owe anybody anything. I can live in this reality all I want, and if my goal is peace and meaningful fulfillment, then I can create that every single day of my life, anytime I want. I take this little thing here. Someone gave me this worth a couple bucks, you know, super meaningful. This person passed on. I'll never lose this. This is more important to me than a lot of things in my life.
Red sneakers. That's for FASD awareness.
It is a Chuck Taylor. I used to wear Chucks every day at work.
Oh, so it just happens to be red, and it's not meant to be red at all.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't even know that, to be honest with you. So,
well, there you go.
I know. Hey, we all learned something. Hey, humility. My point here is that I get to attach anything I want and give it to meaning anytime I want. And Nietzsche says that he who has a why has little time for the how. And so I always want to be investing in my why. What is my why? My why right now is raising two beautiful girls and being the best father I can to them. That's my why. I want to be the best partner I can to my wife. I want to be the best friend I can. I just want to be a good person. And I want to look back on my life when I go to the next space and know that I did everything I could to live a good life and help people. And that is I think about that so often. I realize that there's some morbidity to it, but I like Yalome's idea of like, let's consider death. Or Alan Watts, every human being should consider what death is and what that transition is. And so I really want to take that space and go to that spot, because I'll be honest with you, full transparency and vulnerability, nothing scares the shit out of me more than dying with regret.
Yeah.
And so when I have somebody that I love, I tell them, and I tell them why.
And is that because you're thinking of death? Like when Alan Watts says we should all think of death. What does that mean for you? How do you use that?
We should consider death. In other words, spend time with it. Yeah.
What does that mean?
That process. It means let instead of okay, now you're cracking eggs open here. Fear.
Let's go.
He's saying fear is a disconnect. Curiosity is the same thing. Fear is a lack of information. Curiosity is a lack of information. They're just on different ends of the spectrum, of the joy line, or whatever you want to call it. And so if I have choice being freedom, my history would tell me to choose fear. That's the way I'm designed as a human being. I've far outgrown my evolutionary design, my blueprint. So I now have choice. So do I want to look at death as a fearful event, or do I want to look at it as a curious event? And that's my choice. So I choose curiosity. So then I look at that and I go, okay. So when I'm in that space, I want to look back and go, well, yeah, you know what? I raised these two beautiful young girls. I was educated. I used my experience to help people. I made myself available to help people the best I could. What can I think about as far as resentment or regret? And I can sit here today and honestly say that I can't think of anything that I would regret. And if there was something, then I'm going to attend to it, because accountability. Now another freedom thing. Existentialists believe responsibility and freedom are the same thing. Accountability is part of responsibility. So if I'm accountable to it, then I will be free of that prison. So if I did something that I regret to you, Daniel, I'm going to come to you, and usually it's a value driven thing, because that's who I am. And that's something that we should really talk about. Okay, so let's say my top 5 values: honesty, courage, family, integrity, compassion, humor. Could go on and full of myself. So arrogance. Say it wasn't honest with you. Right?
You're a firecracker, aren't you? Just all over the goddamn place.
Yes, get it. All right. And they laughed, and I said I was going to be quiet now. So if I was honest with you, I would go to you and say, listen, dude, like, you mean too much to me for that to be okay. I want to make an amendment to you, and I want to use you as a driver for me to be a better man and not be dishonest with people again. So now I'm accountable to my value. Now I'm back in rhythm, organic rhythm. When I'm living my life in a rhythm, my life is easy and beautiful and amazing. When I fall out of rhythm, that's when it gets hard. How do I know I fell out of rhythm? This is the beauty of values. Values are my identity. I don't ever need to worry about who I am. If you ask me who I am, I'll list my values off, and that's who I am. So when I'm out of rhythm, it means I've been outside of myself. So all I need to do is look at my values. And then I'll know as soon as I look at them, like, shit, my God, I didn't put my family first. I went to baseball instead, which I've done. And I felt gross about it. And I went, and I was accountable to my wife, and I told her that I'm not going to do that again on purpose. And I have failed again. But the next time, I didn't do it, and I felt in alignment. And then I did it again, and I fell out of alignment, and I had to do it again. And because, I also really embrace the idea that the most significant characteristics of being human is to be fallible, and I am very, very fallible.
That's funny. So, like when I see someone who's just entered into recovery, or who just put down whatever substance or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, I feel amazing. I've never felt so good in my life." I'm like, just hang on. Just hang on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The old big cloud. Yeah. You just wait.
Yeah.
That's, so that's something like, like I would get to like 4 years or 5 years, and then all of a sudden it would just start crumbling again. And like, what's going on? Like, and that's when I realized that, like, I'll tell you, to be the honest truth, and like, I'm not saying anything bad about anything, but I had a guy, I was at a meeting, must have been like 15 years ago, and he was talking to me, and he's like, hey, would you go and see a doctor that worked out of a textbook written in 1939? And I was like, oh.
I know where this is going. I know this is going.
I'm not even going to say any more than that. All I did from there was I really delved into existentialism, phenomenology, and all these, like, humanism. And so, like, the answer to everything is about being as human as possible, being as connectable as possible. We need to open ourselves up to the flourishing of the universe, of the cosmos, of what it means to be in connection. Connection is the freaking answer. It's always the answer. I'm not talking about just addiction. I'm talking about any kind of maladaptive behavior that we find ourselves in that have that feeling that's like, this is not who I want to be, and like, how often do I ask myself that question in any given moment? Who do I want to be?
Let's look at some comments. Okay. We got some good comments coming in. Let's take a minute and look at some.
I went on a rip there, didn't I?
That's okay. We allowed it. Oh man. Yeah, I put too many in here. This one. Oh, and we've got here, come give me a hug. Give me a hug.
Yeah. Cameo.
Say hello.
Hello.
Was this wakeboarder?
That's the wakeboarder.
That's the wakeboarder, yeah.
Yeah, homeboy. Killing it.
Yeah. Told you kids would be coming in.
Yeah,
so I'm going to apologize right off the hop because this name has me stumped. So I'll do my best. Ahu Aman Says bringing gifts to people you like and exercising in the sun and saying one more day and continuing to keep pushing helps the anxiety, but it'll never go away. And this is in response to a couple of our other viewers who are, commenting that they struggle with anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, can I talk about that?
Yeah, please.
So I'm you know what? I'm going to use this word I heard from someone say. I am a survivor of anxiety. So I was diagnosed at one point with general anxiety disorder, social anxiety disorder, and I don't have any of those symptoms anymore. Now I do experience anxiety like as part of the human experience as a normal thing, but it's not it's a very manageable thing. And so what happened for me was I learned about two different schools of thought. One school being that anxiety is a fear of the future. What did we say in the clip? Future's unwritten.
Yep.
Anything can happen. So that completely disempowers that anxiety. And then I go, okay, so this is fear-based. What if it's curious-based? Anxiety and excitement are the exact bioelectrical frequencies. They're the same thing according to our body. It's what we attach to it that makes it either anxiety or excitement. So if I got to choose, choice is freedom, what would I choose? And I'm going to choose. So now I'm going to choose excitement because the future's unwritten. And what if this shit gets cool? You know what I mean? And I can make this shift, and it happens from this is again a psychosomatic connection. So then my body starts to fuse the anxiety out, and it turns into excitement. And I'm looking forward to the day I woke up and didn't fear tomorrow was a beautiful day, And most of my life, I just didn't. To be honest with you, I spent a lot of my life just wishing that I didn't wake up. And what a great experience it is to not have to live in that anymore. Second school. Anxiety is the somatic creation of emotion when it's unable to access the EQ, your emotion center. So when there's a psychosomatic disconnect, my body cannot access my mind and my emotion center. A void happens, and that void, the body creates its own version of emotion, which is anxiety. The only way it knows how, which is a buzzing, zzz. And so that is in the real time. So that one was like, I read about that. I was like, oh my God, like that is most of my anxiety. It is that I'm actually not connected. And so how do I connect? How do I do that?
Mm-hmm.
First, I need to be in the moment. So I need to ground. I need oxygen. Oxygen and cortisol do not hold the same space at the same time. More oxygen I have in my blood system. So when they take a deep breath, it's actually biochemically helpful. So I bring in more oxygen, reduce cortisol. It gives me access to the parts of my brain I need. Right side, creative, vulnerable, adventurous, like all that. Left side, very defensive, linear, straight lines, right angles. This is left side of my brain is where defense, ego, fear, all that, and spreadsheets live in that side. This right side is and right side
I hate
is
spreadsheets
cyclical, paintings and beautiful things and sunsets and vulnerabilities and crying and I don't know,
rainbows and orgasms.
Yeah, yes.
That's what my sponsor used to say. Yeah, recovery is not all rainbows and orgasms, Dan.
Well, I wish it was.
Yeah.
So I mean, where do I want to be in that? So I just, I can make this choice of I ground myself into my body. I start to become, and when I do this, man, I want to be feeling like I am part of the world spinning around the sun. That's my goal. I want to be part of life in motion as it's happening, and it happens now. It happens now. It happens now. And every now I miss becomes a moment missed because I was in thought in yesterday or tomorrow, and that's not existence. That's not living. Now we'd probably live to be 15 years old if we spent every moment in the moment because it's so exhausting. But we do need some cognitive breaks.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, you're talking about duality. I mean, we can't always be in the moment or even recognize what the moment is if we're always in it, right? Like we have to sometimes wander off into the future or the past.
You. Exactly. So fiction implies nonfiction, doesn't it?
Exactly. There you go.
Yes. So nonfiction is in the. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, in terms of fear, I used to suffer anxiety really bad. And I was listening to David G once, and I don't know if you're familiar with him, and maybe some of our viewers are as well. But he really helped me get a handle on that with the idea that fear is actually oh God, I can't remember the word for it. But anyways, so false evidence appearing real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a secondary emotion, isn't it?
It's an old that's an old church basement slogan. So
Oh, Donna used the church basement slogan.
pretty sure I saw that written on a wall.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, so I look at it as there's what's the word I'm looking for? An evolutionary fear, a central nervous system fear. That's like, shit, there's a bear chasing me and I need to be scared. Like, that shit's real.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But then there's the fear of what you think of me. There's the fear of what's going to happen tomorrow. There's the fear of, am I too fat? Am I too short? Am I not enough? The shame-based fear, the social tapestry fear.
Mm-hmm.
And that is completely cognitive, which means it's completely negotiable.
Mm-hmm.
As long as I am the captain of my ship and I decide what happens in here.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a voice talking and it's telling me I'm a piece of shit loser, by definition of conversation, that means I'm listening and that's not my voice. Right. Right.
Even the dog. Even the dog.
The dog jumped for no reason.
The dog jumped.
Here.
He's like, "What the fuck did that guy say?"
So think about how much power there is in that.
Yeah.
So like that voice, and if I really listen to it, I'm like, oh, that's my dad. There he is.
What's up, pops?
You know what? Yeah, and it's like, because you get a 3-letter word for your name doesn't mean you're not just another human being with an opinion. So there's also another little voice back there, another little one, an encouraging one that says I am enough and that I do belong and everything. You know, my life is worthy. It's not the loud one. It's not the bully, because the bully needs to be heard.
You know,
the bully needs power.
That's a reoccurring theme that I've heard. A little while ago, a guest said the same thing almost. He said, "It's listen to the quiet voice. It's the quiet voice."
Yeah.
So, but anyways, hang on now. I gotta put the brakes on you here for a minute. We got some questions. We're coming to the end here. You guys stick around. Don't jump off yet. We're not done yet. Stick around to the end for a clip from next week's guest. But we got some questions here. Ash is awesome.
How does not being aligned with your values affect the possibility of relapse? How does not being aligned with your values affect the possibility of relapse?
Yeah,
do better, Chuck, with the spelling.
Great question. This is a great question. So, I'll be sensitive to the time here. So, okay, if we think about what alignment is autonomy. Autonomy is power. Okay, so when I'm in rhythm of my own life, and I'm paying attention to this and practice this on a constant basis, always doing an assessment of my values, then I'll always know when it's just a little degree off. Like, you know, it's like a record skip. I can feel it. But if I don't notice, then I set off course a little bit. And as life goes on, I keep going off course, and all of a sudden I'm way over here. I don't know who I am. My values are my identity, so I don't know who I am. I don't know what to do. I don't know so let's add some more to that. We're going to add tapestry stuff. The social emotion of shame. Let's wrap it around that, because that's everywhere, and it's everywhere we go. Everything we do tells us we're not enough, and that's capitalism in a nutshell. I don't want to get into that too much, but so yeah. And so how does that affect that? It tells me that I'm going to snort this, and it's going to take it away for 4 hours, and I need that.
Yeah, and then I'll deal with it.
I don't even care what happens after that.
Yeah,
because I don't. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't care. And I know it's like, well, you should be thinking about consequences. I don't give about consequences. Not in this moment, because I'm so lost. I'm so out of rhythm. I don't even know who I am. And most of all, I'm scared.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm scared, and all I know is I'm not enough. And as soon as I snort that, shoot that, drink that, I'm enough for at least 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Got another one here.
So
Got him off.
Got another one here.
Alexander says, how do you tie living detached with your Buddhist knowledge?
And we asked a $5,000 question with 5 minutes left.
With 5 minutes left.
Go.
I don't living detached. I don't know what that means. I consider myself to be living quite the opposite, as completely connected.
Well, Buddhist philosophy is like being detached from worldly things.
Yeah. So, okay, I'll answer that in the simplest way I can. I'm a total cheater. I take what I like and I leave the rest. And I'll be honest with you, that's what I do with just about everything. Like, I love the idea of choice and freedom with Buddhist philosophy. I don't agree with as much discipline as required, because I want to live my life.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look at the orthodox practices, I want to use thought, and we spend, Buddhists, they meditate for 14 hours, and that is the practice of removing thought and being in somatic sensation. You know what I mean? And spiritual alignment. So spirituality to me is not that. I define spirituality as connectability, because I need things simple.
Mm-hmm.
So when I talk about being a spiritual being, I talk about being connectable.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. So to answer your question, I kind of take what I like and what I can use based in my reality. It works for me, and really, I mean, nobody can really take that away from me, because it's mine.
So it's okay for me to be attached to my Sea-Doo?
Yeah, I'm attached to my boat.
Mm.
I'm attached to, and like some things are egoic in nature, and ego is a disconnect, and like, and I hit the pitfalls of that, and I go through life being arrogant, defensive, diva is
Chuck.
As Chuck likes to call me.
He said that in the first 5 minutes of our conversation about you.
I know. And he's right, because a lot of the time I'm pushed back first.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm like, no, not safe. No, not cool. And then I'll be like, softening, right? But so and maybe I could use, but I mean, I also live by existentialist philosophy a lot more discipline than I would Buddhist philosophy. I just like some of the tenets. I love the idea of the river of life, which is a Buddhist tenet. And, like the idea that everything is in motion and everything is moving. And so I don't live detached. And I do pay the price for that at times.
All right, everybody, if you got something out of tonight's show, please hit that like button. Give us a I messed it up. I'm not used to YouTube. Do all the things. Subscribe, give us a like, turn on notifications so you don't miss a thing. Hang on one more second. We're going to get a final thought from Ryan. Ryan, is there anything that you would like to leave us with tonight?
Yeah, okay. If I could leave you with anything, it is that we can choose the lens of beauty anytime we want, and anytime you're having a hard time, you can throw that lens on and see the world as a beautiful place. And I promise you there will be some form of shift in trajectory. Also, values our identity, and they keep us in alignment. So awesome. Connectability is everything.
All right, cool. I suspect there will be a part 2 in the future, but for now, we'll let you go. Here's a clip from next week's guest. Make sure that you hit that button, hit that subscribe, hit those notifications. Take care, everyone.
I was sexually abused as a child. I was sexually abused as a child. Drunk. I was in and out of psych wards for suicide attempts. Had a dealer show up in my house and saw that my eyes were yellow and said they looked the same as his dad's did right before he died. Remember taking my painkillers from heart surgery, and I remember crushing one up and going to snort it in my mom's bathroom after all of this, and I just shook my head and was like, this is dumb. I just could not believe that I would still, even without thinking,